So in today's lecture, we are going to discuss module number 6, that is memory organization. And the memory organization in your syllabus has been specified as the discussion of the memory architecture, how memories, different types of memories are being organized in a computer architecture system, a brief overview of that memory organization. Then we have to discuss the various types of memories in a computer architecture and how they are classified, why they are being classified. You just need a brief overview of these memory sections. We need not to go into the details because this is the part of your next semester course, that is computer architecture system. Then you must have a brief discussion or brief knowledge about PLDs, how PLDs are designed from using ROMs. Then apart from PLDs, we have when PLDs, upgraded versions of PLDs has to be utilized, like we have CPLDs, and apart from CPLDs, we have FPGAs. So these all are types of the memory that we will see in the further sections. So let us start with the basic organization of the computer memory. But before going to the organization, let us discuss why the memory is being organized. Why not? Why we do not use a single memory in a computer system? That can why we are using a cache memory, then we are using a RAM, then we are using a secondary storage like hard drive or some optical disk or something like that. Why we are classifying these memories? So on the first of all, memory is being used to store the programs and data that is required to perform a specific task. But memory is being classified into the different types depending upon the various parameters. So these are the parameters which are taken into account while performing the classification of the memory. So memories are classified on the basis of the cost, then the speed, then memory access time, and data transfer rate, and reliability. So depending upon these parameters, different types of memories are being used in a system, and they are organized on the basis of these parameters and the application, a particular application required for that particular program. So let us see how memory is attached to a processing unit. So this is CPU. So first component that we will see the performance of this structure. Let us start with this processing unit. So suppose we have a processor, CPU, and this CPU is connected through a bidirectional bus. Now what is bus? Bus is a set of wires that carries information in a computer system. Right now, you must learn that only. The bus architecture will be taught in detail in the next course in the upcoming semesters. So CPU, this processor unit, is first directly connected to a memory section, which is known as cache memory. As we all are familiar nowadays in a system, a CPU is connected to a cache memory. Suppose a system has only 2 MB of the cache. The cache memory is very small, as you all are familiar, as compared to the rest of the memory of the system. Then we have RAMs. RAMs are of the order of 4 GB, 8 GB, 16 GB nowadays, 32 GB. So these are the main memory or the RAM. This is RAM. So first of all, processor encounters with the cache memory. Then the cache memory encounters. Then after being connected to the cache memory, the processor switches over to the main memory. And main memory is finally accessing IO processor, and IO processor, this is IO, that is input output, and this is connected to the auxiliary set or the secondary storage. The secondary storage is hard drive, magnetic disk, or we have optical disk. These are the parts of the secondary storage. So why, if we can store bulk of the programs in secondary storage, why cannot the processor directly access this secondary storage? There is a difference, and why these memories are being classified to each other. Classified on the basis of in these sections. So cache memory is the fastest one. This has the lowest access time. So cache memory is the fastest one, and hence it can synchronize with the CPU because CPU operates on the clock frequency of 4 gigahertz. It's working on the operating frequency of 2.4 or 4 gigahertz of this range. So This cache memory, this cache memory is fast enough to synchronize with the clock speed of the processor, and hence it is connected to this part. So main memory. So if the processor has addressing capability, say a large addressing capability, the cache memory has access time of the order of nanoseconds. Main memory has access time of say 100 nanoseconds, and this magnetic tape or hard drive has access time in the order of milliseconds. So there is a time gap, long time gap between a processor and a secondary storage. And hence the secondary storage cannot be directly connected with the CPU. Suppose CPU orders for a particular instruction to find out in the secondary storage. And the secondary storage, the instruction given by the CPU is very fast and it has to operate fast. But the access time for this secondary storage is very slow because this is a sequential kind of memory. So there is also a classification on the basis of the access categories of the memory. The access categories of the memory, the secondary storage are sequential accessing memories, whereas this main memory is regarded as, or this cache memory is regarded as the type of RAM. This is known as SRAM. We will see what is SRAM, what is DRAM, but this cache memory is known as SRAM, whereas this main memory is regarded as DRAM. So this SRAM and DRAM are the classification. This is known as cache memory is known as static RAM, and this main memory is known as dynamic RAM. So static RAM is faster as compared to the dynamic RAM, and hence it is connected directly to the processor instead of the DRAM. So it is faster and has lower access time as compared to that of DRAM, but both are RAMs. And what is RAM? RAM is random access memory. Whereas hard disk is a sequential drive. If you want to access the data in a hard disk or a magnetic tape, so we need to access sequentially. We have to access every sequence and then reach to the data required that we need to fetch for the CPU. But and hence these tapes or hard disk drive needs more access time, but can have bulk of storage. So this has more access time, whereas a particular data section can be randomly accessed in RAMs, and hence they are known as random access memory. Whatever we need for a particular section, if we directly can access that particular RAM cell and can fetch the data required. So, and hence these are known as random access memories, and obviously they are not sequentially accessing a particular data kind. So they take less access time as compared to that of the secondary storage devices. So this is the classification, and as we know that on the basis of the faster mechanisms, as a faster mechanism, cache memory is the fastest, so it can synchronize directly with the CPU. So it is directly connected to the CPU. Thereafter, if a data is not found in the cache memory, then the CPU switches over for the main memory. So main memory, a part of some segment, a part of some program is connected to the main memory. So let us classify it. This has the least storage. CPU, the processor has some register sets. As you will go into the course of microprocessor, you will see 8085 microprocessor. There are some register sets which store some data. So that is the part. So this is the lowest unit of storage. Then cache memory is of the order of 2 MB. This is of the order of 4 GB, 16 GB, 32 GB, and this is of the order of GBs or terabytes. So secondary storage is highest memory storage device. But this is why we are accessing it. So CPU, fastest memory is connected to the CPU. If it is found in the cache memory, then the cache memory. So a instruction, all the programs of the devices, all the programs or data is stored in secondary storage. All right. We store every program or data in hard disk drive. We store few programs which are needed randomly, which are needed. Uh, there are few programs which are, you may say, frequently accessed. The programs which are frequently accessed will be the part of main memory, will be available in the main memory to be fetched by the processor. The programs or the part of the program or subroutine of a program will be the part of cache memory. Means not the complete program, but a particular section of the program which are needed by the processor very time to time, or which has to be visited very frequently, are part of the cache memory. And every program or every subroutine has what it has. It is a set of instructions, and that set of instructions has to be accessed by the processor. So what processor is carrying out? Processor is holding an instruction. An instruction, processor is holding an instruction. An instruction is a set of programs, and set of programs, a part of a program is the part of cache memory, and that complete program may be the part of the main memory, and the secondary storage stores all the programs and the complete data required for the computer. So on the basis of cost, on the basis of access time, and on the basis of storage capability, the memories has been classified. And this is a basic structure of a computer system, how a computer organization is carried out. So let us see how the memories are classified. So basic unit of the memory is register. Then we have L1 cache, then we have L2 cache, RAM, then secondary storage. So registers are the devices, as we have studied in data electronics. It can store a bit of information. But if we have 4-bit register set, so it can store 4-bit of the information. So register is part of the CPU. It is the part of the processor. So the first unit or the lowest unit of the storage is the register, which is also the fastest unit of the storage and the costlier unit of the storage. See, in this pyramid, as we are proceeding towards the top, as we are reaching towards the notch of this pyramid, and we can see that the cost and speed both are increasing, but the size is decreasing. So the size is reducing, but at what cost? Speed and cost. So both are increasing, and hence the complete computer system. If we read a very fast computer, suppose the question may arise: if cache memory is so fast, why don't we use only cache memory to design a computer system? Yes, we can use cache memory to design a computer system, but that would be very costly. That will be very costly. So in order to optimize between the cost and accessibility, to reduce the minimum access time, and a compromise has been adopted in computers, in the organization of the computer system, and this compromise is evident in this block diagram. So we have a 1-bit register can store 1 bit of the information, then cache memories. So cache memories are the fastest memories. L1 cache is faster than L2 cache. Then we can, in most of the computer system, you can see there is also an L3 cache which is connected to the computer, which is connected against the computer before RAM, main memory. So cache memories are of the order of 2 MB, as I have said, 8 MB. Now of the order of 8 MB or 16 MB can be found in the robust computer systems. Then faster than cache, we have RAMs, and then we have secondary storages, which is hard disk drive, optical drive, etc. So size of the secondary storage is maximum, but the size of RAM is less than that of secondary storage, then size of cache is less. So as we are moving up, the speed is increasing. The speed is increasing, access time is reducing, the cost is increasing, but the size is decreasing. So this is the part of the memory that has been being organized on the basis in this computer system. So the compromise has been designed for the organization. So let us switch over to the parts. Let us discuss about the parts of the cache memory and the parts of or the how the organization is of the architecture. Detailed organization of the computer system is not being discussed because this is not the part of the syllabus. We will just go through the overview of the simple memory sets, which is specified in your curriculum. So this was the basic memory hierarchy. These are the parameters on which we are arranging a memory set in the computer system in a computer organization. And this is how the memories are attached to the processor. And why they are attached in this sequence, I have tried to tell you that on the basis of these requirements of cost, speed, memory access time, data transfer rate, and reliability, we have classified or arranged them in the sequence as we have required according to the applications. So this pyramid represents various memories on the basis of parameters of speed, cost, and size. So let us switch over to the main memory. So main memory is the central storage unit in a computer system. The main memory is basically, we can say, it's a large memory. So main memory, let us identify what is the part of main memory. The one which has been specified in the slide is complete section of this part. The main memory plus cache memory. We are not talking about the different parts because the main memory or the RAM is simply DRAM. We will further classify this random access memory basically into two categories. So large memory, it is made up of integrated chips. There are two kinds of memories. One is RAM and another one is ROM. So RAM is random access memory in which we can read and write. Both the operations can be performed. But in case of, there is also a memory which is which holds the system programs, which are unavailable to the users to write. This can only be read. So this is a read-only memory. So random access memory. Random access memory is the fastest type of memory, as we can say, according to, because this memory, random access memory, can be classified into two categories. So before we go to the classification of the various memory sets, let us classify the memory systems, broadly classify the memory into two categories. One is the memory, if we classify the memory. So one will be a system which is known as a volatile memory system, volatile. And other one will be non-volatile. So one is volatile memory system, other one is non-volatile memory. So volatile memory system is RAM, right? Whereas non-volatile memory system is ROM. So RAM are further classified basically. What is volatile? The volatile memory systems are defined as the one which lose its memory when the power is switched off. When the power is cut off, the memory will lose its data. Whereas in case of ROM, the data is stored in the memory, permanently fetched or fused in the memory. So bit cells are permanently fused in case of ROM, as you will see in the further when the ROM is being utilized as PLDs, programmable logic device. So they are permanently programmed. So PLDs, then CPLDs and FPGAs, so they are ROM. So we will see what they are. But right now, we have volatile memory, and memory can be classified into two categories, volatile and non-volatile. Volatile memory is can further be classified into two categories. One is static RAM, other one is dynamic RAM. So the volatile memories are the ones in which when the power is switched off, volatile memories are the ones in which the power is switched off, it will lose all the data completely. But ROM holds the data even when the power is switched off. So let us classify them. The RAM is static RAM or dynamic RAM. So static RAM is the one which needs no refreshing circuitry. And why it doesn't need any refreshing circuitry, we will discuss when we will discuss about the circuit of SRAM and DRAM. So no refreshing is required in case of static RAMs, whereas a refreshing circuit is required in case of dynamic RAMs. And this reason is dependent upon the structure and the circuit diagram of these memory cells. So static RAM. So static RAM are made up of a bit of data is stored using a state of a flip-flop. So these are made up of flip-flops. As the flip-flops are capable of storing a bit, these are so static RAMs are made up of flip-flops, retains value indefinitely as long as it is kept powered. Mostly uses to create cache memory. So SRAMs are cache memories, faster and more expensive. Obviously, this is more expensive than DRAM. So cache memory is being used in the order of MBs. Why this is being used in the order of MBs? Because it is more costly than that of the DRAM. Whereas the DRAM is the part, each cell stores bit with a capacitor and a transistor. So why this memory needs a refreshing circuits, why this is being different from the SRAM, and this is the reason. It is using a capacitor. So capacitor holds charge. The charge holded by the capacitor, if the capacitor is holding charge, that part is regarded as 1. If the capacitor is not holding charge, then it will be regarded as 0. So each cell stores bit with a capacitor and a transistor. Large storage capacity. It can be fabricated because it is being fabricated by using the capacitors only. So a large storage capacity can be availed at lower cost as compared to that of the static RAM. So needs to be refreshed frequently. Obviously, capacitor loses charge with respect to the time. As the time passes, the capacitor, no capacitor is perfect capacitor. It will always have some leakage. And if it is a capacitor, it will leak some charge with the time. So it needs to be refreshed frequently. So it needs a refreshing circuit. All right. So this is the basic difference between a static RAM and a dynamic RAM. A static RAM needs a refreshing do not need a refreshing circuitry because it is made up of flip-flops, and flip-flops has the capability of holding the data storage capability, as we have seen in case of a bistable multivibrator, as I have discussed in the classes also in our classrooms, that bistable multivibrator is the basic building block of a flip-flop unit because it can hold that data a particular bit. So, and how it is being achieved in the case of bistable multivibrators, we are using 2 transistors connected back to back in complement with each other. So the collector of one is feeding the base of one, and the collector of one is feeding the base of the other. So the 2 transistors are feeding each other. So one transistor is on at a time. So this is a complementary circuitry. They are complement to each other. At this output section, between this collector and emitter, we can observe the output Q. Between this collector and emitter, if this at the same time, if you are observing Q at this point, you will observe Q bar at this point. So as we have seen in the case of bistable multivibrator, the similar design and structure has been adopted for the static RAMs to get designed. So they are working on, and hence they are faster and expensive to design. So because it involves the 2 transistors operating in a fashion, and they are the basic unit or basic building block of bistable multivibrator, works as bistable multivibrator, and can hold the value until and unless the next clock arrives or the input is changed. So this is how the SRAM is written into or read from. We will see this circuitry. This is an interesting circuitry, that how we read from static RAM and how we write into static RAM. So there is a particular mechanism. Whereas in case of the dynamic RAM, just a capacitor is getting charged or discharged. So if a capacitor is getting charged or discharged, on the basis of this, the dynamic RAM holds the data. If the capacitor is completely charged, it is holding, it is having if the capacitor is completely charged, it will be regarded as the 1 bit. If the capacitor is not having charge or not having voltage up to the certain level, then it will be regarded as a logic 0. So these cells stores on the basis of the works on the basis of the charge holding capacity of the capacitors, and hence they are dynamic RAMs and they need a refreshing circuit. So in the next lecture, we will see how these static RAMs and dynamic RAMs are working, their working circuitry, their basic working circuitry, and how they are organized. And we will see the various classification of the role in the next subsequent lectures. So this was the first lecture of this module. We may have 2 more lectures to complete this module. And try to attend this session. If you are not able to attend, we are recording this live session, and I will share the recording of this session and share the link with you. You can access this video. If you have missed something, if you have any questions regarding these lectures, they can be addressed. Just write those questions on your Google Classroom, and I will try to address them in time. So thank you very much for today's lecture. Let us end this meeting.